welcome to my Tuesday afternoon event. I have Christine Dykeman here, and this is such a wonderful story. We first met when we were both commenting on a post way back
Yeah,
when. And
way
one
back
thing,
when. Oh
and
God,
one thing
it's
just
making me
led to
feel so
another.
old.
No, but that's what networking's all about. We
It
just
is.
posted and we figured we'd have
Yes.
another conversation, and
Yes.
one thing led to another.
Yes.
So, when last we spoke, Christine, you were at a different opportunity, and now you have
Mhm.
moved on or maybe done a couple of different things. So, what's the latest with you?
Well, right now I am the assistant HR manager at a industrial manufacturing company. That's about 20 minutes away from me. And I was working for the government, for the
Mhm.
county government, which kind of fell under the umbrella of the state. And with that said, I was teaching resume writing and LinkedIn and social media and that kind of thing. So then we had COVID. And so my job changed and morphed and redefined itself. But part of all of that was being a space so that they could share their knowledge about different job search techniques with my audience. And you were one of those people, but not only were you one, you were back often. And that's the best part of networking, is to know that we are all on the same path in life. Even if it's different industries, we're all in job search. And what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for you, but it might work for you. And having those conversations is key. And that's what I found, and wanted to always pass that along to the public. And it allowed me to reach a wide audience working in that industry. So that was definitely a good thing. And now it's time to take care of Christine.
And I'd love to know where everyone is checking in from. I see Jonathan Woolley is checking in, a couple of others. And introduce yourselves in the chat, because one of the things which I love so much about Christine, besides the fact that we both are local, is we are both introverted and very, um, it's not easy for us to get out of our shells. And I will never forget that we did a LinkedIn event a while ago down where you
Thank
were
you.
in Central Jersey. But
Yes.
there's nothing that beats the ability to meet in person, and we've met a few times in person,
Mm-hmm.
because we share so much about our background, about how we network. And
Yes.
I think for me, it's always been, I'd love to engage with people, and I love to do it that way. I still have my limits about how much I actually want to go out and go to in-person events. But what about you? I mean, do you feel you've kind of developed a little bit less of an introvert, or you kind of put yourself out there a little bit?
I think that you kind of get used to it, and you're an introvert, and I power myself from that downtime, from being alone, which allows me to be that extrovert when I have to be that
Mhm.
extrovert and I'm in that networking situation. And I think a lot of introverts are or share those characteristics. But when you start talking to people, like when we first started talking, we didn't know each other was an introvert. And just by having that conversation, you start to learn that people have that commonality. We are all people. We all have friends and family and dogs or cats or whatever it happens to be. And those things are important to us. And it might be something different, but we're all human. And that's the common denominator. And it would be amazing if you just talk to people to find out what those commonalities are and develop a relationship. And that's what job search is all about. Whether you're in job search, you're looking for a job, you're helping others to land the job, you're all there as a human being. And what part can you really just help somebody else out when it comes to that?
And I know my younger son graduated college last year, and I think your son
Mhm.
is graduating college now, and we
Yes.
definitely have challenges with that as to how we would do stuff, for
Yes,
sure.
absolutely. And even though it's very similar, we're talking about 5 generations that are in the workforce. So, what is important to somebody that's 65, 67, 85 is very different than that 25-year-old or that 35-year-old. They're in different places in their lives. And being able to talk about those things makes you a stronger candidate in your own job search, but also it helps you to understand what is important to them so that you can be a little bit more empathetic when you are talking to people around you. And it makes you more successful in the job search. Ken, your sound went out. Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you. All right.
My sound is back. My sound is back.
He's back.
I'm back. I'm dealing with a little technology. What I wanted to say is when our kids graduated, one of the things I actually wrote a post about this is some suggested presents for new graduates, whether it's coaching or training or learning how to do a resume or something. What do you find is some of the biggest challenges that this generation has now, especially through the pandemic when they may not have had the same ability to network? I mean, my son last year was like, he really didn't know how to do certain things because he hadn't actually had an in-person interview anywhere. So everything was on Zoom. So even getting dressed up and figuring out how the eye-to-eye contact, you know, what about with you and your son and what you've had to go through?
I think that this generation, and it's not every single person, I think overall, they've never been taught because they never had to be networkers. They never had the opportunities that we had to go out and just hang out at the movies or the mall or wherever you hung out. We can't go out and ride bikes. And we had COVID. They had COVID. And that was their most formative years. So when you start talking about job search for them, they don't understand why we believe networking and talking to people is so important. They have phones and maybe that's how they communicate, but that's not how we communicate. And we have the ability to use that technology, messaging and emails and that kind of thing. But those of us that are successful in networking know that face-to-face contact is the best. But for them, it might not be. So there's definitely a disconnect on what the expectation is versus what they grew up with and learning that skill as well as all the other job search skills that come along with it.
And I think when I'm working with a lot of my clients now, and we were talking about this before, I see so many resumes that have 25 years of experience on there, which they think they need to have, but they really shouldn't have because there's no reason. You can just cut it down. People don't really want to know everything that you did. They want to know what the most recent 10 to 15 years is because otherwise, you know, what's the benefit? It's the old, what's in it for me? And when you were with the state, I'm sure you saw things along those lines too.
I absolutely did. And thank goodness for job coaches such as yourself and the posse that you have who have enlightened me in different aspects of what is accepted and expected as opposed to what is not, such as the 25 years of experience on a resume. And I'm a recruiter at heart, and that's my past. To be able to bring that into the workplace is very different from the other side of the screen, so to speak. So you have a job seeker side, but then you have the HR recruiter side. And where do they align? And what are the expectations? In most cases, a recruiter doesn't have time to read 25 years of experience. And that's not such a bad thing because how clear can you be getting to the point of 10 to 15 years? However, all the stuff that you did before that 15 years is very important because you have skills that maybe somebody that you are competing with doesn't have. However, you might want to highlight those skills in your cover letter or answering an interview question, bringing your present and your past into the same answer. You're getting it in without putting it in writing on the piece of paper for them to have to go through. And we all know that it's 6, 9 seconds of them skimming. So putting 25 years is really just getting lost in translation. You're better off just explaining in an interview the answers to those questions, or maybe even a cover letter if you want to ensure that you get that interview and the chance to explain. You have other ways to do it as opposed to putting it in your resume.
I think one of the things we have are there's so many words that are like effective communicator, highly motivated individual, multitasker, able to work with teams, all that resume-ish. And it's like, okay, if you're not doing that now, Candace, you have to assume people that you can do that. You don't have
Well,
to
see, I would like to know, please point out to me somebody on the street that's not responsible or, multitasker or a team builder, or tell me somebody that's not going to say those things about themselves. Whether or not it's true, I'm really not sure, but it is very subjective. You can call yourself whatever, but proving the accomplishments, proving that you are a team builder is way more important. How you use team building, as opposed to calling yourself a team builder and not really going any further with that comment.
We talk about having effective results on there. It's not what you did, but what did you do, and what was the business case, and how did you help and support the business?
How did you help and support the business is the most important, because yes, you did something, and yes, you can take credit for something, but why did you do it in the first place? Because you had nothing better to do, because you had extra time on your hands. Again, name me one person that has extra time on their hands when it comes to their job and their families and everything else that's going on around them. When you can actually tell them the reason you did it, then that is huge. That's huge.
And just like Microsoft Word is not a skill anymore.
Not anymore, unfortunately.
Not a skill. If you can't do that, I mean, it was a skill back then, but not anymore.
Right. It's kind of like typing or word processing, or it has become that obsolete thing where it's just expected that you know how to use that program.
But the challenge that I have is being diplomatic and letting people know why we feel the way we do. It's not that we're trying to really throw them, get them all upset, but there's a reason. There's a reason we're doing this, and there's a little bit of pushback. And I think that's the challenge that we all have as career coaches and people like myself. We want to be diplomatic, but at the same time, we want to. It's almost like tough love, but it's nice tough love, if you will.
And I think that you're going to have different reactions to that tough love. If someone is embracing a new idea, or this is not working, I have tried sending out my resume, I'm not getting any bites or hits, I need an objective person to look at it and give me some feedback and take off or put on or make word changes. If you're listening and following their suggestions, you may have better results. And a career coach is not in it because they're bored. They're in it to find you success, to help you get to that next level. And they want that for you. So listening to them and taking some of their or all of their suggestions is going to help you in the end.
I want to do some call outs now. I'm sorry for not doing this before. There's William here from Oregon.
Hi,
Melissa, we both know Tony Calabrese.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony. He was actually my guest last week when I was at PM.
Yes.
Deborah Griffin.
Hi,
Deborah. Thank you guys all so much, because this is really, and again, Meryl Cass, and I'm actually looking forward to the end of the month doing a LinkedIn Live in person, actually in Northern New Jersey, and I don't know if she's going to be there.
That's awesome.
But
if you can go, if you are local or if you're going to be in the area, I highly recommend going to a LinkedIn Live and just meeting people in person, as opposed to having a screen between you and the other person. That's one of the things that Ken and I did participate in. And it just brought us a lot closer, and we were able to interact even better in person at my LinkedIn Live.
So, what we've also done a few times is we've met for a Saturday morning breakfast, and that has been so great. And I'm looking forward to, in July, a bunch of us are getting together in person.
Yes.
And I don't know how you feel about in person now. I'm going back to it little by little. I think nothing beats seeing people.
Yes.
Getting a chance to chat with them.
I would love it if I can see both sides. I can see having things virtual. I don't think that some of our friends that have joined us today from Oregon or other states would ever in a million years think of coming to New Jersey. And unless, of course, you're here already. So it allows us to share some information worldwide. With it in person, though, it allows you to have that intimate relationship building with other people in the room, and nothing beats that. So I can see both sides, and I really do like the in-person thing because, as you had mentioned, meeting people in July, we're planning this thing, and I have met some of these people in person, but a lot of them we interact online on LinkedIn, and we're in the same groups. However, we've never met face to face. And I'm looking forward to taking that relationship building to that next level, which is really nice, really nice.
And I'd love to get some comments from people if you have any questions for us, because excuse me, any questions for us, because Christine and I can chat all day.
We could.
And we probably will at some point, because especially when we get together with our spouses.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. My spouse is an extrovert. I don't know if your spouse is that way or not.
You know what? I think he's more of an extrovert, and that's probably why we're still married. Probably same for you, right? Introvert versus extrovert. Brings me out and brings him down and in, so it works very well. But sometimes, marriage works with two extroverts and two introverts. So.
Well, for anyone who's in New York, just to let you know, July 21st, which is a Friday, Rachel Simon is coming in from Atlanta. Bobby Umar is coming in from Canada.
And if you're not following them, either one of them, definitely write these names down, because the people that are in this group, they have some really, really great job search techniques and just information that they'll freely share, just like Ken. And it's very important to listen, to learn something new, and you didn't even know you're learning, at the same time making relationships even bigger and better.
We have the gauntlet. Lynn Williams would love to do another Jersey Shore LinkedIn Live.
She came. Thank you, Lynn. She came to my LinkedIn Live right before COVID. Yep. And I would love to have another Jersey Shore LinkedIn Live. Right. If everyone is interested, we've got to find a place. But that sounds awesome.
We can do that. I would love that, because, Lisa Rangel is now down there, too.
Yes, she's right next door to me, which is awesome. So there's two of us already here. Come on down.
So the gauntlet has been raised, and we will set that down. Because the last time we did it, I had so much fun. I mean, and I met people there for the first time.
Yes, yes. And so did I, which is awesome, because LinkedIn Live allows you to invite anybody, and people come, and I have never met them or even had a conversation with them, and now we are friends, which is pretty cool. So it allows you to do this thing. Good friend George Pace is on our chat. Yes. George says, "What is this networking you speak of?" And I always say networking is nothing but making friends. I cannot tell you, go play with little Johnny over on the playground over there and go down the slide and become his friend. They'll all look at you like you're crazy. This is a way that you can make friends without feeling the pressure of dating or speed dating or, sitting at a bar or whatever it happens to be. You can just go and have conversation, and no one's going to look at you like you have three heads playing with little Johnny on the slide over there.
Although I remember speed networking events where you go from place to place to place, and I was like, oh my God.
Right. I believe that. That's got to be hard.
Well, it was hard because this was 2009, 2010, and we would go, and every 30 seconds or a minute, we go from place to place. And by the 10th or 11th time, I'm like, I don't want to be here. He doesn't want to be here. She doesn't want to be here. Can we just sit down and work with a couple of people? But that was all the rage, the speed networking in the morning.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody that's on this chat right now, do you participate in speed networking? I have never really heard of
Well,
that
it's
being
kind of
an
like
option. Is
with
that like
Zoom.
a North Jersey thing?
With Zoom, it's a little different because now we can
Okay.
all go online. But you would go to an event at a mall. Perfect example is
Oh,
at a mall.
really?
You go to the food court. You'd have all
Hmm.
these different tables set up, and you'd be at different tables, and a bell would ring every 30 seconds or a minute, and you would go from place to place, kind of like
I don't like speed dating, right?
exactly.
Well, I never did that, but I watched movies that's happened. So speed networking is like speed. So
It,
can anybody go, or did you have to be a member of a
it
particular
was
group to
open to anyone,
go?
but
Okay.
and you didn't know what the other people did. So you might
Oh,
be you didn't know, and then so it was for me as an introvert. I was like, okay,
pressure's
what am I
on.
supposed to do? Um, I did it twice and would never do it again, even though they have those things now. It's almost like when we used to go to the Breakfast Club, we'd have the elevator pitches, and you go around the room and go to the front there for 30 seconds or 45 seconds. And it's like
Mhm.
I would stress out about what am I going to say? Am I going to get it out? That sort of
Okay.
thing.
All right. Very good. Very good. I like what Ed says. It sounds like I agree. I think it might be artificial and constructed. So I'm not sure if I would be successful at
Well,
something like that.
the way it's set, it's small business owners, and and at the time, this was pre LinkedIn. This
Okay.
was pre a lot of things. This is when you'd have business cards, and you'd have business cards, and
Okay.
you know you'd be writing stuff down in a pad or in a little memo book. But
Mm-hmm.
it's outdated. It's like now you go to an event and people right away they're not talking the same way about things.
Wow. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. So I guess that like the whole speed networking thing is kind of obsolete now that we're really not
Yeah.
using
Well,
business cards.
so are elevator pitches. I can't if I go when we going back to in person meetings.
Hmm.
The ones I've run, we don't do elevator pitches anymore.
Okay.
We don't say you have 30 seconds or 45 seconds or a minute. That's just so counterintuitive.
Okay. Okay. So how do people practice elevator or do they not? As a career coach, do you have is that part of your coaching?
It's more about job search and answering interview questions, you know,
Okay.
and making sure you have a few stories to share when you go on an interview and you're
Right.
prepared. And especially now with Chat GPT and all these things, you can actually
Yeah.
have something in place. It's very counterintuitive to do it. And I
Okay.
told, and um, as
Well, I
Joey
know
says
that
here,
elevator pitches, the term came from Harvard University
yes,
to a
it
personal
came from
branding statement.
well, it came from there because the idea was you had only as much time in the elevator to go from one floor to the other to get it across.
Okay. All right.
Um, but here, this is an example. One side of the table changed seats every 5 minutes, so each person got 2 to 2.5 minutes. It was fun. Okay. Um, to each his
Are
own.
you still in touch with those people, Lynn? I'm curious. Like, have you maintained those relationships, or was it kind of one and done, or you really clicked with? And even though you met, 15, you only stayed in touch with two. How did that work? I know that I'm asking you a question probably faster than
Well,
you can type.
I can say this. I had business cards from all these events I went to, and I never
Mhm.
looked at them again. I
Okay.
never looked at them again. And one day I threw out 1,000 business cards because I had no
Really?
idea. I had no idea
Really?
how I connected with anyone. And it was so counterintuitive because there's so many financial people there, so many insurance people, so
Yes.
many, and that's why even with the Chamber of Commerce now, I have my niche. And
Okay.
so Ed wanted to know from Joey Himmelfarb, network is the enemy of the ATS. And Ed's a recruiter, and I would be curious to I mean, I think I kind of know what Joey is saying, but I'm not really sure exactly. And I love for people to interact. So again, Brenda checking in, popping in for a few minutes before my next call. We're trying to get Brenda here. On top of that, if we can work it out.
Come on, Brenda. That would be a really good event. You and Ken.
Yeah,
So.
of course. And then actually, Bobby Umar and Rachel Simon have an event they do as part of the thought leadership.
Yes.
And when this is over, definitely want to save the chat because one of the things that Rachel and I rail against is automation. We hate automation. And I have actually started removing connections and deleting followers.
Okay. Okay. Are you finding more newer connections are doing the automation than, like, is it more recent because of things such as
It's
GPT, or
because
is it not really have anything to do with that? Or
if I get one more message about PMI certification, if I get one more message about here's 15 leads for me, if I can
I'm
get one more,
certified from PMI. Come on.
I know, but I don't need 15 of the same email for
I
that.
know.
And I
Yes.
and it's I mean I got and then I get the follow-ups every day or two. It's like, did you not get the memo?
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I've just blocked and reported, and LinkedIn of course says it's not spam. So of
Right.
course it's whatever. But it makes me feel good to get them out, and I'm going to do a post next week because I've been on LinkedIn 15 years. So I went back to my connections to see who my first 200 connections were.
Okay. All
And
right.
some of them are off the platform.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them I forgot why I connected with, but a lot of them were family and friends. And I think that's
Right.
a great way to start. In fact, the second person I connected with was a cousin of mine. And the third person I connected with was a friend of mine. And at the
Okay.
time, I had that relationship. So if you're ever looking for a fun thing to do, go back to your connections and see who you connected with first.
You know
I'm
what? I
interested.
am really glad that you said that, Kenneth, because I did that exact thing, and I went back to see who are my first connections and how do I even know these people. And I think it was probably the first or second connection, and I did everything wrong. I mean, if I could do it all again, I would, but I keep that connection in there because I did everything wrong, and it helps remind me what not to do. And we're going to have that situation where you do things wrong, and it's okay because again, you're a human being and you make errors. But now I know to never do what I did with that one person, but I keep it there as a reminder.
So George put this in here. He made LinkedIn connections with everyone named George Pace. And I actually got a connection request. Kenneth Lang from Brenda's group and I, we have connected too. I was in LinkedIn jail many times in the beginning. I sent out too many connections. Too many people didn't respond to me. I think it was a lesson learned. But again, I didn't know better. And I would apply for a job online and I would just send it out to other people. And back then, LinkedIn was even less transparent than it was before. We just assumed that was the case. But there was a person on LinkedIn who had 300,000 connections back in the day.
Wow.
Before they had a limit, before they had a limit of 30,000.
Right? Yes.
And then they removed his platform and all his profile and all his connections. I will never forget that.
Wow. Wow. Can you imagine losing all your connections that you like work so hard to build up and make those connections to begin with and develop those relationships, and then they get another I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn, so to speak, and they're thinking, well, I'm already connected to that person. So
So Sandra, we look forward to seeing you. And I know Sandra, wait, Rachel rather. Apparently, I mean, they're doing something very similar to us. We're taking a baseball road trip in June, taking in some sites. I think part of it, and this is part of my digital detox, is I'm going to be taking time off every month now, just off these LinkedIn lives and off doing other things because um, I'm a bit overwhelmed right now. I shouldn't complain, and I really won't complain too much. But we all have our breaking points.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that you need some downtime to be up on those other weeks. And if you don't give yourself that permission to be down and to be off, then it's very hard to continue, especially for an introvert. So I totally get that to be on all the time. Sometimes you just want to be you.
Well, when this is
That's
over, I'll take my nap,
mm-hmm.
my power nap, and just decompress.
Yes.
And then it's back to the Lee Hecht Harrison resumes. And I think honestly, I've gotten a little depressed from that, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just so frustrating,
Frustrating.
and
I was just going to say frustrating. Absolutely.
it's very
Absolutely.
frustrating because when we see the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and I will put this out on the call now because this was the person in charge of branding actually said they're looking for more people.
Oh,
Lee
wow.
Hecht Harrison, as
Yeah.
brand. So if anyone is looking for an opportunity, let me know because we're ramping up our teams next week and the week after.
Hear
Um,
ye, hear ye. Job opportunity.
yeah, and you can make your own hours.
And it's a great way to make those networking relationships, talking to people and talking about their experiences and what they've done, and helping to pass on the knowledge that you do have as a job seeker to other job seekers. So I think it's a win-win for both sides, and it definitely helps you to give back. So for a volunteer effort, so to speak, I think that mental health is going to be huge. It's going to help you.
and Lynn told me this. I think his name was Steve Burba. Was on the board of directors, and they gave him no notice, which was the worst part of all.
Wow, I think that is worse. Wow. No notice, just wiping it clean. You go to sign in, and it's kind of like losing your job and them not telling you, and you go to log in and you can't.
Well, I've been spending a lot of time doing LinkedIn customer service for people because
Mm-hmm.
people have lost their profiles and don't know where to turn.
Yes.
Um,
And now before you couldn't do that, and now there is a place to turn. And I guess it's affected so many people that they have a place for you to turn to now, so that you can merge profiles and that kind of thing, which is really nice. But they never did that before, so they can see a need.
so, are you back in the office now at all, or is it? Were you?
I am. Yeah, never left. I've been in the office the whole time.
And what's it
This
like?
job and the other one.
What's it like?
It's fine. It's fine. Everyone, no one. There's one person that wears a mask. Everyone else is maskless, but they're all in different departments, so they don't really interact, so to speak. It's not where everyone's kind of all together in one big room. But what I do like about working here is that it's really a family atmosphere, and the culture of my current job. They eat together, they play cards together. Like teams will actually sit down and play rummy with each other or whatever, and not gambling, but just show each other how to play and what's the best hand. And that to me is what it's all about, because they're living while they're working, and we never really had that before, or at least my generation didn't.
No, well,
this is a whole new thing, and I really appreciate that and can see the shining star on that, which is nice.
So what do you find the best about going back into the office? Things that you missed?
I think that like I said, going back to networking in person, it's going back to the office in person is a little bit different, because you are being able to walk into the hall and run into somebody in the restroom that you wouldn't normally see during the day. And you definitely wouldn't see on Zoom, because you're in two different apartments and you don't interact. But being able to have that conversation with them is pretty cool. And you forget how cool it was until it happens. And wow, I really had a good day. I enjoyed being able to have that conversation with somebody that I wouldn't normally be able to have it with. So
how did you get the job, if you don't mind my asking? Was it just a networking thing?
It was networking, and I think that just being involved in a couple different areas, primarily with SHRM, the premier human resources organization for the state of New Jersey. I am the Workforce Readiness Director. And with that said, the programs and people that I've brought into our local and state chapters kind of demonstrated to others around me the kind of person that I am and the kind of worker that I am. And that kind of tumbled into other opportunities, volunteering for PMI, for Project Management New Jersey, for HRCI, all those things. You're giving back to the community and you're helping others, but you're also demonstrating your value and what you can bring to any organization. And that definitely pays it forward. So I'm very happy right now. Thank you.
So I want to thank you very much for getting together, Christine. I know you're working now, technically, so I want to make sure that you don't get bombarded too much there. But I want to thank everyone for attending. And Thursday afternoon we have Virginia Franco, Claire Davis, and myself doing Lions and Tigers and Resumes Oh My.
And if you have not been to Lions and Tigers and Resumes Oh My, you have to go. I'm hoping that everyone in this chat and comments has been there, but if you haven't, make it a point, put on your calendar, and definitely go. It's an awesome experience.
And Virginia's actually headed up to the city too, so I can't wait to see her. She's so have a great day, everyone. Thanks a lot, Christine, and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to see you, everyone.